Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Asian Movie Pulse interviews. I am Sean Barry, and today I am joined by filmmaker Yaxing Lin. Yaxing Lin is a versatile director and graduate of USC School of Cinematic Arts. Recently, she has put out her latest short film, Playground, starring Zhao Zuqi and Kai Soiqing. The short just made its Japanese premiere at the Osaka Asian Film Festival recently. Thanks for being on, Yaxing.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Of course. How's your evening going so far?
I think it's going good. It's Friday night, you know. I'm ready for something, outside of work.
Ah, like the cat in the wall behind you.
Yeah, that's my pet.
That's your pet. That's cool. You have a special guest. So
She's listening very carefully.
great. So, Ashing, of course, like I said, Playground is your newest project. And first off,
Mhm.
just want to say congratulations on the short making its premiere at the Osaka Asian Film Festival.
Yeah, thank you. I was very excited.
Absolutely. It must have been like a really big deal to have a project shown internationally and at
Yeah,
such a prolific film festival.
yes. It was really good resources and connection and also very good committee. It's very well organized. Yeah.
Right. It's a collective organization of different artists coming together.
Mhm.
Um, Now, of course, Ashing, so the story of Playground is a very sensitive and elegantly portrayal of the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child, even if the circumstances surrounding them are very, how do you say, cold and indifferent. So my question to you is, what inspired you to direct Playground and tell such a heavy but very important kind of story?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So, I feel like directing this story or writing this story myself is almost like a destiny. Um, because before I graduated from USC, I always want to write something about my personal experience. So this kind of vague memory, like this big picture, just come out of my head when I was brainstorming. So it was me, like even before 5 years old. I was dancing in a nightclub stage, and I was surrounded by a group of adults. They were smoking and they were dancing, and I was dancing wildly as well. And then I heard someone ask, "Is she high?" And that was everything I remember about like this nightclub experience. And it was very interesting to me when I was thinking about like recall about this memory. But later on, I think it's also like a traumatized experience for me, um,
Mhm.
as like a 5-year-old. I think I've seen a lot of things and heard of a lot of things that's a little bit inappropriate for a girl like that age, but it just so vivid, and I still remember after 20 years old. Yeah, that
Mm.
was the beginning of Playground.
So it was taking your own personal experiences, but also the inspiration of other experiences that, let's face it, I'm sure there's plenty of children like the main character of Playground have experienced, where, it's a world that seems foreign and at first kind of, how do you say, interesting at first glance, but then
Hmm.
the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the more horrifying it becomes.
Yeah, and also I was taken to that place by my mom. So one thing is also like true or real to the story is that my mom was telling me not to call her mom, just call her auntie.
Mm.
And I was really I couldn't get over this, for almost 20 years old, but I didn't really talk to my mom about this. Just wait before I came to the United States, I had a long interview, like 4 hour interview with my mom. I'm just curious what about my mom, a person who I'm so close to, but I just know nothing about her before I was born, or her early, 20. So when we talk about her experience, like working in a nightclub as a waitress, I just talked to her about why you the first time I asked her why you want me to call you auntie. That was a really, really cool thing you can say to your daughter. And
Mhm.
she said she couldn't say anything. She just started crying. We just basically end up crying together. And then I didn't really have the courage to ask her about this question for 20 years. And then I was turning 25 at that year. And my mom was about 25 years old when this kind of thing happened. So I was always thinking about what if I have a, baby girl to take care of? What if I'm getting to this kind of situation? Am I gonna do better, or how am I gonna deal with it? It's more like a conversation between like the 25-year-old me and the 25-year-old mom, my mom. So
Mhm.
at that year, I just feel like I have to make something about this story. Otherwise, I'm not gonna get over this traumatized experience. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, that's a very courageous thing to do. And
Hmm.
there must have been something very therapeutic about doing that, something
Yeah.
comforting, almost like, how do you say, maybe like a sense of closure by turning it into a fictional but very grounded story based on real
Hmm.
experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
talked to my therapist about this. She said the day you are able to tell the story, then it means like it helps you day by day. You don't have to hide it behind this kind of things again, and you can have a more you can have a straightforward conversation with your mom after that. Yeah,
mhm. It's like it's like a weight has been lifted off your back in a way.
yeah,
Like the weight that you've been carrying on your shoulders, and in a way now you can just breathe. It's a little bit of, it's come, you've accepted it and you've confronted it. And now the great thing about this is it also, I'm sure that there's plenty of viewers that who watch this short film can also relate to the main character, and the relationship that she has with her mother in the story. So,
yeah.
that's
That's
a
true. I was really curious because at first I just want to tell like an authentic Chinese story. So I went back to China uh, to film it. People ask me why you don't just film it in LA. I feel like it's just gonna be a little bit different. So, but later on, I screened it in LA and also Japan and other places. People, I found it's a emotion that's universal. People
universal,
speak speak different languages, but they still kind of connect to it. So
right?
I'm so happy when people tell me that.
Yeah, regardless of the language, it's a universal kind of story, that anyone can relate to. And one of the clever things about Playground, really, that I really stood out to me was actually the title itself and how it correlates with what occurs within the story itself. I mean, the title Playground cleverly reflects the characters' stark contrasts in views, particularly to the adult entertainment club where most of the story is set within. To the mother, it's her job that she's basically, you know, a last resort in order to be able to bring in money to support her and her child. For the little kid, it's almost like curiosity, and at first it seems fun and mysterious, especially with the colorful lights and the dancing and the music and the vibrant colors, like, an indoor playground. It's a very interesting contrast to see, but then at the same time, something that happens within the story brings them both to reality, and their perspectives then clash with one another.
Yeah,
Um,
I never changed my title since my first draft of the story, so I love this title as well. I'm so uh grateful that you explain like everything, the subtext behind it. It's basically what I want to express.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, playground could also translate to also just the world in general, because one of the big thematic things about this short is regardless of how hard and someone's struggles are, unfortunately, the truth is there's so much indifference in the world that they are set within. Even so much you could say that the world in general is like a playground. For the mother, it's a environment to try and find some way to make ends meet. And for the girl, it's, a mysterious it weirdly enough, it's like a fantasy land. It's set in the real world, but to the girl, it's like a good example is when the short opens, and as she's venturing out into the night looking for her mother, she happens upon a little shop that happens to be playing cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, like little stuff like that. And it must have been, how do you say, rewarding to also have the use of colors and location correlate so well and translate one with one another to enrich the overall atmosphere, because the outdoors are very like realistically lit, but like
Hmm.
the indoors, there's all these vibrant colors and like very heavy use of the colors compared to outside where they're a lot more muted and a lot more naturalistic.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
was
I yeah, I really want to share a little bit about this color. I really it like part of the fun as a director for me is to create my own like visual style or like this color palette that I think is gonna working for the story. So I had a great class at USC. It's called Visual Expression by Bruce Block, and he wrote the book Visual Expression as well. And I basically draw a diagram about how I might want to use the color to tell the story. So my conclusion to it is that I want everything outside the playground is very realistic. It's as realistic as it can be, and everything within the nightclub, the playground, I want it to be as wild as possible. That's the word I use to describe it to my team. I want it to be wild. Yeah. So in terms of color, I want everything outside is a single color, and is, as you mentioned, is a little bit muted. Inside of a color, I wanted to uh, give different. Basically, I gave different character color. So this mom is this angry red, I would describe it as. And for the weird beard uh, uncle, I gave him this weird blue color. And for Jia Jia, she is in this alien green color. My DP just called it alien green because he thinks it's really ugly to put it on people. But I say this is what I want. I want this weird alien green to be on her face and on every uh, auntie, uncle around her. Yeah.
right. Or with the character of the grandmother, interestingly enough, she's always seems kind of shrouded in shadows a lot of the time.
Yes. Yeah. She was originally in the story was part of the supporting role because of the limitation of the lens. So she's kind of in this corner of the story, but also in real life, she's kind of like that.
Hmm. It makes the way the colors are used in the story also to represent the characters and their emotions. It also makes everything feel almost dreamlike. Like it feels like you're in a dream. And, with a dream, sometimes something can start out very heavenly, which we even see at points in Playground, but also in our dreams can turn into, of course, nightmares.
Hmm.
Was the dreamlike atmosphere implemented to tie into also the childhood curiosity that Shaji, the main character, is exploring throughout the story?
Um, Sorry, what's the question again?
The dream, was it always the atmosphere always intended to be dreamlike, to tie in also with Shai-Chi's curiosity of the adult entertainment club and
Oh, yeah. So basically, I I'm the person who really fascinated by magic realism. So I got inspiration from my childhood and I got a inspiration um, from my dreams as well. So I'm thinking of using dream in the film is more like my intention was more like I want to stick to the child's point of view, and I don't really want to have any judgment on this kind of activity or the mom's behaviors or this man's behaviors. It's more like from the innocent eyes from Jaja. And I also use some dream or surreal scenes from Jaja's point of view. I hope I basically I want to I don't know if I'm doing it too much, but I just wanted the audience to translate what Jaja's world like to the audience under to translate how Jaja understands this adult world. Yeah.
you even see some of that kind of surreal dreamlike imagery at points. Like a good example is when Shaji is dancing in the nightclub with the
Hmm.
other people inside. She
Hmm.
starts to fantasize about being on a Ferris wheel
Yeah, yeah. That
or
was a
at
thing
a
I like.
merry-go-round.
Yeah, a merry-go-round. I
Merry-go-round.
remember during
My bad, merry-go-round.
yeah, one of my professors wanted me to cut this thing, and I was really unhappy about it. And I basically his reason is that the scene that she was dancing on the stage and the scene she was in the amusement park are two parallel things. You don't really need that if you want to cut your film shorter. And then I was like, this was my favorite scene of the whole
Mhm.
movie. And then I just keep it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thematically also it makes sense because a merry-go-round is something that's very appealing to a child. There's something kind of
Hmm.
magical being on that. If there's a reason why they're often, long lines when you see merry-go-rounds at amusement parks, because as far back as they go, their appeal still, carries on for centuries and is
Hmm.
universal to children.
Hmm.
Um, you also do
Yeah, I
see a little
agree.
also do see, without spoiling, you do see a little bit of that also in another sequence that shows you know, almost the reality that Chechi wishes that she had with her mother. Basically, a
Hmm.
reality where there is no issue and very much like bliss.
Hmm.
And interestingly, about that sequence, in that sequence, the use of color is very clean and very vibrant, as opposed to these very kind of threatening darker colors that you see when they're in the
Hmm.
nightclub.
Yeah. So for that one is based on my idea about when I don't know if it's just me or other girls. When we were young and we always dream about like we wanna marry our mother. It's a weird thing, but just my mom asked me, "Who do you want to marry when you grow up?" I said, "I want to marry you." And she's like, "You cannot marry me. I'm your mom." But I always have this kind of uh interesting conversation with my mom, and I think she should be my bride. Yeah, so this thing basically is based on my um this kind of interesting childhood memory, and then I wrote it as a wedding scene in a forest. It's very sacred, and there's a deer in the woods, just like the deer showed up in the outside of nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, this is the happiest moment uh in the whole film. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a dream.
It's a dream, and unfortunately, there is something sad when eventually she'll have to wake up again and face reality.
Yeah.
Um, and do you feel regarding the storytelling, do you feel that providing dual perspectives at different stages in life can more effectively highlight sensitive subject matter to the audience?
I do think of I do think of this question. Um, I think I only use single point of view in this film um right now, and owning the child's point of view. I do think of the mom's point of view at her point of view somewhere in the film, but because of the length and the consistency that I want to keep, so I didn't really develop this angle. But I do think of it, and I think it's gonna be really interesting to have this dual perspective. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and it adds another layer of realism to the whole thing.
Yeah, if I have a chance to develop it to a longer story or film, I will definitely consider it.
Right. And it's always sensitive when you're depicting such a dramatic story from the perspective of a child. I mean, there's plenty of examples like that in, filmmaking for many years.
Mm.
Um, so do you hope that telling the story of a mother and a child's fragile bond in an indifferent reality will raise awareness of topics like poverty and, the importance of a good childhood?
I do think of it because so this is not like a single story from a single family. It's I would say it's pretty I wouldn't say it's pretty normal, but it's a lot of cases like this, especially in less developed area um, in China. And I just think sometimes the worst thing I can think of is this kind of cycle of poverty and cycle of neglect that happen from generation to generation. I can see it from my mom that her parents didn't really. It was a cycle for her, and I hope it ended cycle on my generation, which I achieved it by getting to the higher education. So yeah, I do think if this kind of story and this kind of voice can reach to more audience, and especially who resonate uh, from this story, I do hope they can do something to for like say for mom or for parents, they can aware of that because my mom always say I was young as well. How do you expect me to do? But I feel like there's something she can do, but I don't want to push her right now. But there's something she can do, and there's something the government can do. There's something the community can do. So I just raise. So my story basically raised like a question, raised like a problem there. I don't really have a solution in my story because of it's a short story. There's not much I can include, but I do feel right now if the store reach out to more audience or more community, there's something we can do.
Yeah, and there's something that can connect with people. And in many respects, even while there is, of course, advocacy for many of of these types of issues,
Yeah,
creating art, you know, and viewing art, gets people interested, and it also connects with people. So really, creating art can help in getting those issues across. Because even if something is a fictional story, what is being told in the story could be so real and true to what's happening in reality, and could be true to not just the filmmaker, but also to the viewer who's watching.
yeah, I do agree. I feel like before you ask this question, I only like think about it, but I didn't really make a conclusion of it. I feel like if it's right now, what we can do is to definitely focus on education and maybe better childcare service so the kids like that don't have to go to the place like that with their relatives or something with her mom. And of course, I do think a better mental health service or uh, health resources will help like community or group like that
Hmm.
to to heal from this kind of experience or to understand the situation around them instead of just treat it as normal, as
Right,
routine, as or avoid it or hide it behind this kind of traumatized experience for decades.
right. It makes a it helps make a difference because someone could say we should do something, but also making the just the slightest effort can help to making things just a bit better. Even if a goal may seem really hard to reach, it's doesn't mean that it's impossible. And it doesn't mean that the littlest efforts can help make a difference for the better.
So true. My biggest fear is that we cannot break the cycle of this kind of property or this cycle of this neglect, this
Right,
cycle of this kind of problematic childcare system. Yeah.
right. A problematic healthcare system, caring
Hmm.
for children, like you said, mental health. Um,
Hmm.
but it's like it also brings this up, it it raises creating art and addressing such issues raises discussion and can get people more interested in like, wow, we really need to help make a difference so that we can help, you know, children that are being neglected, so we can help improve, mental health and strengthen the healthcare system and all those type of issues.
Yeah, and one thing I almost forgot to mention is that there's a lot of people ask me about like, are you creating like a feminism film? Um, to be honest, I do, and I didn't really. So I'm the filmmaker who really think about the gaze issue in cinema and in every people's work. So I'm thinking of how this kind of entertainment club materialize women, and also not owning this club. I feel like in most of the films and in most of the uh, media, it's always there. And so I'm thinking when I'm retelling this kind of story, the least I can do is I'm writing it from a female's perspective, and um, I'm looking at my character from a kid's eye, mostly like an innocent eye with no judgment. So she is judged by the society. She's judged by um, his customers, but she's not judged by her daughter. She's not judged by the audience because we're looking through judge us eyes. So that's something I want to say about this story. That is in my life, I've always see how the world is materializing women, and it's always there, and it's not getting better, I feel. So in the future, I hope Playground or my future works will delve deeper into this kind of issue. This is the least thing I can do is from my eyes, my experience, and my emotion to express it with my genuine uh, perspective. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, of course, a lot of these issues can be discussed, especially in a country or like China or throughout Asia in general, but also universally because, even with, the many improvements that there have been in like the United States, for example, there are still issues that still linger, including gender inequality and neglect.
Yeah.
Um, So, like you said, the least that we could do is do something rather than do nothing and just let it continue in a vicious cycle.
Yes. That's a very
Uh,
good conclusion.
yeah, absolutely. Would you want to like do something like this in a feature long project?
Um, I'm thinking about it, and I'm writing uh, a treatment, a feature treatment of it right now. So I hope I can develop something at the end of the year. Yeah, because after talking with you, I had a stronger feeling that I there's a lot of things can be included in a longer version, and yeah, I'm excited to put more things into the story if there's chance.
Fantastic. And I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, Beijing, it's been a pleasure having you on Asian Movie Pulse interviews, and thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions and have
Of
this
course.
discussion regarding your newest short film, Playground. And once again, congratulations, especially on its premiere at the Osaka Asian Film Festival.
Thank you so much for this amazing interview. And it's always a great thing for a filmmaker to share her story and to have someone who interested in her story and give a chance, opportunity to share. So I appreciate this interview today, and I hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And this is Asian Movie Pulse Interviews. Have a good night, everyone.